What's happening, party people? Welcome to Blues Lawyer Confessional Viewer Comments, episode number 1. Welcome. We have gotten many hundreds of comments in the past couple days. It's quite remarkable. Thank you for all your comments, you the viewer. And so this episode is for you. I've worked really hard every single day trying to respond to as many comments as possible, at the very least hearting ones that are not horrific. And if you have not yet commented on any of our videos, now is your chance. Post a comment below and say you're a noob. And I'd love to see that. So please do that now. And now let's
And
get to the comments, Matt.
a lot of people sort of had questions. Number one, about the tax change. Here's the thing. First of all, got to get this out of the way, which is that this is for entertainment purposes only. Okay. And yes, I am a licensed attorney, but I specialize in debt collection, just so you guys know. I'm not an entertainment lawyer. I'm certainly not a tax lawyer. The last thing I knew about tax was the federal income tax course I took over 20 years ago in law school. So this is for entertainment purposes only. It is not to be construed as actual legal advice. If you have any genuine questions, especially about your taxes, seek your own legal representation for your taxes. Hey, seek your own help from a tax professional, a licensed tax professional. That's the best answer you're going to get. Now then.
All right. This is from Jerry Fraker. Hi, Blues Lawyer. What happens if I buy a used guitar from a private seller who lives near me, and a couple years later I sell it on Reverb, paid $4,700? This is very specific information. Paid $4,700 from private seller and sell it for $5,500 on Reverb. Profit of $800. That math checks out. I get a 1099 from Reverb. I get a handwritten receipt from person I originally bought it from. Good for you. Is that good enough for my tax person so I don't have to pay taxes on the full $5,500? And the profit of $800? Is that good enough for the IRS? And what I said was, consult your accountant before you send in your taxes.
That for starters is going to be your best advice right there. Here's the thing. This is it's not quite a brand new rule change for this year. This is an existing rule. What changed is they lowered the threshold. I know that obviously whoever is in office when these changes go into effect, they usually take the political hit, all the griping. 1099K requirements have always existed, and including this one. This one goes back literally decades, but they did just lower this threshold. As I had stated, it's because they realized, hey, computers exist and these things can be tracked really efficiently. As to your question, Jerry, I know where you're coming from. I've got any number of guitars that I had bought secondhand because I like to do it. It's a great way to save money on vintage gear. However, these are guitars that I bought off of Craigslist back in 2004, 2005. So, there is no paper record. I would probably wind up getting taxed at whatever my prevailing tax rate is on whatever that sales price is, because I can't prove what's called the basis, which is my baseline. It's not about what you paid versus what you received. It's about what you can prove. And when it comes to taxes, the burden of proof is on you. Is it fair? No, it's not. Does it screw us, the little guys? Absolutely. But you can't fight City Hall, and you sure as hell cannot fight the IRS. Plenty of people have tried, and plenty of people are currently sitting in the Gray Bar Hotel having unsuccessfully fought the IRS. If you have, though, this pre-existing paper receipt, that actually might be what you're going to want to look for, is pre-existing indicia of this thing. You want to be able to corroborate it. So,
Like a canceled check.
a canceled check would be good. Another thing that, it might even be something as simple as that Craigslist exchange that you do where you're like, hey, I'll meet you at the Starbucks on X date, whatever. Now you've got a starting point.
All right, let's move on to David in Tokyo. I wonder if he is in fact in Tokyo. I'll just pretend he is. That'd be fun. David asks, wasn't Gibson suing Kiesel at one point? What happened with that? And for those of you who don't know, Kiesel is actually the old Carvin guitar company that I thought was super cool. And then it's like one day Kiesel shows up, same thing. It's Kiesel's Carvin. Matt, was Gibson suing Kiesel?
Not quite, no. Gibson did what's called a cease and desist letter. That's basically pretty much a form letter that they send out saying, hey, we think you're infringing on our IP. Stop it. Whether or
And that
not
was generally speaking, or was that like a certain like Les Paul
it
shape?
it looks like they had two shapes that Gibson says we're getting a little too close. They had a V shape, they had a single cut, and they said, cease and desist. And Kiesel, they issued their statements to the various, members of the guitar media saying, look, if Gibson wants to sue us, we can't stop them from doing what they're going to do. We do stand by our designs. And truth be told, I mean, I looked at the Kiesel's V. It was hecka pointy. I mean, we're talking about a Jackson Randy Road level of pointiness.
Well, it's also a
It,
custom guitar shop, so like they can kind of do whatever they want. I don't. But yeah,
well,
it's
it's
fair.
not that they can do whatever they want. There are limits, but it wasn't quite going to hold up.
Yeah.
This was just Gibson protecting their own interests. How zealous they were going to go after Kiesel.
This is in response to the Heritage video. Kiko Marty says, JC, I hate Gibson. There's a lot more history to Gibson versus Heritage. As far as I am aware, didn't Gibson try to sue Heritage before, but they ended up backing out because A.O. Appleton designed a single cut electric guitar 10 years before the Les Paul was released? Or they backed out of a trademark or something like that. I now own two amazing Heritage guitars, and I have Gibson to thank for leaving a distaste for their company. And then he notes that he says Gibson's canceled a contract with a retailer linked to or owned by Band Labs. I do remember hearing about Band Labs. I didn't know that was canceled. Sounds like bullying. Do you know anything about that, Matt?
Okay, well, first of all, I had before all of this, I had heard of Heritage, but hadn't really, gone into the history of them. And, I'd always thought of them as an also ran, but the more I read about them, the more I was impressed. And honestly, their H150s look nice.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Now, then, addressing the second part of that question first, that's actually kind of what the issue in the antitrust, so to speak, lawsuit or claim that Heritage has done against Gibson, as they said, at this point, you're engaging in anti-competitive business practices. You're using your status as the proverbial 800-pound gorilla to squash competition. That ain't cool.
It's
Um,
O.W. Appleton for you, Kiko Marty. O.W. Appleton, he released his single cut in 1941.
Again,
It'll be on the
one of the
screen.
things that you need to be conscious of as an attorney is the concept of making bad law. So, hey, if I'm Gibson and I want to really litigate this, what are the possible outcomes? Let's say Gibson tries to go all out and tries to say, hey, the single cut design belongs to us. We invented that. There would be a possibility that, someone could say, no, 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 no. Appleton invented that in 1941. It's pre-existing. You don't get to claim it. That's bad law. That's bad law for Gibson. And then the question becomes, does Gibson want to really, really pursue that? It may really ultimately just be a bit of a bluff by Gibson to try to renegotiate the licensing agreement between
Yeah.
them and Heritage. From what I understood, it was a pretty sweet deal that Heritage had for, you know, the existing years. And
I
yeah,
mean, there's still, I mean, known boutique builder. Like it's not, they're not being sold at like guitar centers all over the country. Like they don't have this distribution. I'd
they,
have to
they
work hard to get a Heritage in my hands. Although Heritage, if you're listening, please send us two. Thank you.
also they are really the scrappy underdog when you
Mm-hmm.
look at their company history.
Oh yeah.
They were founded by the guys who stayed in Kalamazoo, the guys who had made the original Les Pauls. And that's a pedigree you really can't fight with.
It's
And
fantastic.
I think if you're Gibson, don't fight. your forebears. It's just not a
Yeah.
good plan.
Idiot Burns comments, Fender shapes are not protected to my best knowledge. To which I said, the Stratocaster is so copied it would be impossible. And then as if everyone followed the do whatever but stay away from the names and head shapes, we'd be fine. As a someone who took 1 semester of contract law, I think that was fantastic advice. What do you think, Matt?
Well, I think that actually there is some contract law, and this is where Fender takes a different tack than Gibson. One of the things you'll notice is that Fender licenses its shapes, it licenses its designs. Basically, it for Fender, it's a great deal. Warmoth, All Parts, all of those third parties that have licensed by Fender, what they get to do is shift all of the manufacturing costs, all of the distribution costs onto that third party, all of the warranty costs. Something goes wrong. Hey, that's not Fender's fault. That's Warmoth's fault. That's not Fender's fault. That's All Parts' fault. Meanwhile, Fender collects a little bit on the back end. So let's say you spend $200 on an All Parts neck, $20 goes back to Fender. How much did it cost Fender? Nothing. It's free money. It comes in. And what do these third parties get? They get to put that Fender logo on the back of their headstock saying licensed by Fender. Is it a Fender neck? No, it's not. But it's licensed by, and that's almost as good. It helps them out. So it's a win-win, and ultimately it keeps Fender's litigation costs down because lawyers cost money. In-house lawyers cost money. Outside counsel costs even more money. So why waste your money on that when you can just license? Ultimately, they know everyone's going to make an S style. So why bother?
Yeah.
I think we all can see what's going on with the new American Vintage series. People don't want to spend $2,000 on someone else's design. They want that Fender one. They'll spend the $2,000 on a Fender American Vintage, but not on Joey down the block.
Getting some hate mail. A couple of our friends, I'll name them, Stanton Braden or Braden. I'll call him Stanton Braden. That sounds good. And John Herbison. Your video states that Nashville is in the Fifth Circuit. That is incorrect. Gibson sued PRS in the U.S. District Court for the Middle District of Tennessee in Nashville. The District Court ruled in favor of Gibson. PRS appealed to the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals, which reversed the District Court's decision. The Sixth Circuit opinion is reported at 423F numbers, yada, yada. So, and I said, Matt was wrong. I'll give you a shout out.
I was.
It happens.
Thank you for the correction. I actually always welcome corrections. Thank you for the interaction. I don't know everything. I'm reminded of the old adage about the bar exam. The bar exam is legal malpractice. It's asking you to render legal opinions without access to the books. I practice primarily right now in Maryland, and before that, I was practicing in California and New York, neither of which are in either the Fifth or the Sixth Circuit. You're in, I believe, Nashville, so you know this better than I. And once again, I defer to you on that. Thank you for the correction. It's quite helpful. And also, thank you for the citation. Citation not needed because it was provided.
There we go. All right, last question of the day. Again, just a reminder, if you haven't yet commented on any of our videos, put you're a noob in the comments below. If you're not subscribed, subscribe. The algorithm, the analytics are telling me that only 1% of our viewers are actually subscribed. So let's make that 2%. You click subscribe now. Boom. Do it. Okay, this last comment goes to Jay Hill from wherever Jay is from. Why doesn't Gibson go after the Chinese? Not only can you buy a straight up fake, complete with the Gibson logo on the headstock, plus a real Gibson serial number, to just buying an LP Explorer or V model without the logo or number. Either way, these things hurt Gibson way more than Dean. And then John Monroe noted that there's a great video about this. Maybe I'll find it and link it. We'll see if I have time. I noted, as your YouTube studio paralegal,
Yeah.
It's easier to go after an obvious target in America as opposed to a decentralized network of counterfeits overseas. A few more comments and then some other things that I won't read. My proposal is that Gibson is going after people they can go after instead of a decentralized network of random Chinese fakes that are impossible to stop, because once you find one, another one pops up and five
Well,
more, and they just get chipped all over.
it's not even that. You're not even playing whack-a-mole. You're banging your head against a wall. Like I said, I do debt collection law, and there is a saying which is, winning is nothing, collecting is everything. So why doesn't Gibson go up against these Chinese manufacturers? Well, I actually remember a case that I worked on at an old firm where we were going up against Iran, as in the Islamic
The
Republic
country.
of Iran, because they were involved in the 1983 Marine barracks bombing in Beirut. And whenever we'd send them papers, they would basically just return it unopened in the mail with a note in Farsi basically telling us to go pound sand. They are a sovereign nation and they are not subject to our laws. Similarly, these Chinese companies, they're not subject to our laws. International law, honestly, it's a fun subject to study, but there is no international law. There are treaties, there are conventions, but let's say Gibson goes and sues, ABC Corporation operating out of Shanghai. Okay, that's great. They'll probably sue them. The other company won't even bother appearing. They get a default judgment. They get an order that says, hey, stop doing it. Gibson then sends it to the company, and the company sends it back saying, hey, we're not in the United States. We're not subject to your laws. We're not going to do what you say. So why bother? A more cost-effective way is to instead rely on U.S. customs. And every so often, you will read a story about the customs intercepting huge shipments. There was one earlier this year we can try to find where, yeah, they interdicted an enormous shipment of Chinese fakes, of fake Les Pauls. What happens? They get seized, they get destroyed. Boom. How much does Gibson spend on that? Nothing.
Yeah, in
The U.S.
February
government does.
February 2021, they seized 36 counterfeit guitars worth $160,000 in fakes.
Yep. Cost to Gibson, zero. Why pay the lawyers when customs does the job? So why doesn't Gibson go up against them? Because they don't need to. Even if they did, it wouldn't do any good. They're an overseas company. They're not subject to our law. Plus, they're scofflaws anyways. Even if they were
Criminals ain't
subject
gonna
to our law,
follow laws.
they'd be counterfeiting our stuff. I mean, come on. So, it just isn't a good use of Gibson's resources. That's why.
Very good. Perfect. All right. Well, thanks, Matt. Thanks to you, the viewers. Keep those comments coming. Less fiddling,
More
more
playing.
playing.